All right, so hello to Janet and to Rosalie. I think everybody else, and of course to Dick. All right, so our first order of business is the approval of the May 18th minutes that were sent out. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll move to approve those.
Do we have a second?
It looks like Janet's trying to.
I got it.
Oh, okay. Did Janet get it, or was that you, Sarah?
No, that's
Sarah.
okay.
Sarah? Okay. The motion. Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Move to roll call. Kim? Okay, I can't hear you again, but I can see your mouth saying aye. Sarah?
Aye.
Zilly?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Rosalie?
Aye.
And Lynn is an aye, so that passes unanimously. Thank you. So you can see Kevin is actually on vacation. We know that because he is not wearing a tie. He is still wearing a button down. He's down the Jersey Shore, in case you're wondering what that background was. Thank you for joining us, Kevin, on your vacation.
My pleasure. And if you hear kids running around or lightning striking, my apologies. It's a little crazy down here right now.
Lightning striking one of the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, the next item is a membership update. So at the select board meeting on Monday, all of you, everyone on the committee was reappointed for another year. So that term begins on July 1st, 2021. So this is the last meeting officially for this term. So thank you all for stepping up again, for volunteering to participate. Since the term begins on July 1st, and then our next meeting, which we'll talk about in a minute, but assuming it's well, it would be the same time, July 13th, which is the second Tuesday. If you could get down to town hall between the 1st and the 13th to get sworn in, to sign your papers, and Beth is going to give you, if you need it, you probably know it by now, but the open meeting law information, conflict of interest information. And then this is the year when we all have to do the online ethics training. It's pretty short, but I'll give you the information for that. And so if you can just watch that, fill out the paperwork and get it back to her, that would be great. You don't have to call ahead. The town hall is now open. So on Mondays, it's open from 8 to 7. And on Tuesday through Thursday, it's 8 to 4. So if you can get down there sometime within those timeframes, that would be great. Thank you. And also we had 2 new members appointed to the board, Frank Martino, who owns the Commons, and Tom Capano, who owns Fresh Look Designs. So they were both voted in, and they will get sworn in and then attend our next meeting in July. Did anyone say anything? No? Okay. Thought I heard someone. All right. The next item is discussion on the fiscal year 22 meeting schedule and locations. So the first thing is just to touch base on our July and August meetings. This Thursday, the Senate will be voting on whether or not to allow municipalities to continue to do virtual meetings through September 1st. According to Brad, it's more a formality at this point, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. So they expect that they will vote to allow municipalities to do that to help with the transition. So my question then to the group is, would you like to continue to meet virtually over the summer to give members some flexibility as to where they might be located and just to make it easier with scheduling to be able to jump on virtually? Is that something you'd like to continue to do for those 2 meetings? Janet?
I vote for virtual. I vote for virtual because if we're on vacation, like Kevin right now, and all spread out all over the place, we can always still know we can do it on a Zoom call.
I agree.
Okay. Yep, Kim. All right. Sarah, you're shaking your head yes. Does that work for you? Okay. Rosalie, Zilly, any thoughts?
Virtual is fine with me.
Okay. And Kevin, I know you were good on virtual.
Virtual works fine. Absolutely.
Okay. And Zilly's got a thumbs up, and I'm thumbs up for virtual too. Okay. Terrific. So we'll continue to meet virtually, assuming that they pass that on Thursday, which I'll get something out to you, but that should be moving forward. And then just talking about the schedule, we don't have to decide tonight because we already know we're going to continue at least for July anyway, because then we go into July is our new term. So let's talk about it. Whether or not Tuesdays at 6:30 is the date and time that you still want to continue to meet the second Tuesday, or whether you'd like to switch it. And because schedules may change. One thing that I will throw out there is just trying to be a little considerate of Kevin's schedule because he's tied up so many evenings, with meetings. One option, and I'm not sure if that works for everybody, is to change it to either a Monday or a Thursday at 6. I don't know if that's too early for everybody with other activities going on, but that way we could have an hour meeting. It would keep us to an hour. We could stay focused. And it would be right before the board meetings so that 2 meetings are done on the same night to free up a night for Kevin. Just a thought. Kevin did not suggest that. I'm just throwing it out there, conscious of the number of hours that he's putting in and the number of nights that he's tied up. But I have no idea what anyone's schedule looks like. Last time that we talked about this, I think 6 was a little too early for some people, but I'll throw it out again just to see how everyone's feeling about days and times for next year. Any thoughts?
6 works. Monday, 6, 1 hour long.
That
works.
It starts, and it depends a little bit too. Actually, we have our board schedules a little all over the place. We're every other week, but it's not always exact. So some Mondays it may be right before a board meeting, and others it may not, depending on whether we're doing which Monday of the month we're doing. But we'd try to tie it into the select board schedule so that it frees up some time.
Lynn,
I can do.
do you happen to know when FinCom will be meeting?
Yeah, Kevin, is that finalized yet? Do you know?
I had a chance to talk with Chael, who's the chair of the FinCom. Once we finalized our schedule based on last night's meeting with the select board, and this Thursday, finding out if remote capabilities will be able to be extended. Last week I talked with Shay on Friday, and I said I'd send that schedule over to him. I don't believe they've established a schedule at this point. Shay and I did talk about trying to, if possible, create a way so that the meetings either start at a different time on Mondays or a different day, because it's tough when they conflict, because everybody wants to be present for the FinCom meetings and the select board meetings if we can as well. But simple answer to that, Sarah, is not yet. We don't have a definition on what the schedule is, as I understand it, for the FinCom yet.
Okay. So it will be really hard for me to have a meeting at the same time that John does. So that will be a factor. And during the summer, 6 o'clock works for me. And probably Mondays work. And then in the fall, it probably will be tight because I'll have coaching responsibilities.
Okay. How about others? Are there any days or times that absolutely don't work for you or that you would prefer?
I can do Monday and Thursday, both at 6. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Or keep it this Tuesday.
Same here. My only definite no is Wednesdays. And the other days, sometimes there are other meetings, but they're generally not until 6:30 or 7 at the earliest. So I would just hop.
Okay. Well, why don't we do this? We don't have to firm it up tonight, but could you just send me what you can't do, a time or a day, and we'll back into it that way. Are we okay for the 2 meetings in the summer, keeping just the way we are right now, second Tuesday, 6:30, because we've kind of been planning on that? and would look to migrate come September.
Yeah, Len, just one point, because with Tom and Frank coming on board, they might have their preferences as well. So I with you, just keep it the way we're doing, and then we'll change it up when they're on board and see what happens.
Yeah, because I did tell them the second Tuesday at 6:30 is what we are doing. So at least for the summertime, that would work for them, because they knew that coming on, that was our schedule. I mean, if we decide to keep it, we keep it, but we can get the input from them as well, and then talk at the next meeting or the one after it and try to nail that down. Okay. All right. So at least for now, we know virtual, pending Thursday's vote, and same time, same date for July and August.
And if I could just very quickly, Madam Chair, if just for everybody's sake, whatever works for the team, I'll make it work. I don't want anyone to think that those are hard dates and times. If it's Tuesdays, if it's not Wednesdays, but if it's whatever time that people have available, we'll make it work. I don't want anyone to feel any undue pressure to have to do it on a Monday or a Thursday.
Okay. It does sound like, Sarah, you're not going to be able to do anything sooner than 6:30 though, right? That come the fall?
I might. I don't know.
Okay. That's all right. We have time. We have time.
Yeah.
It's usually pretty hard, but I might be able to make it work.
Okay. All right. So yeah, if you could send me those, that would be great. Times, days you absolutely can't do, like no earlier than, or these particular days. Okay. Moving into downtown initiatives, Kevin, turn it over to you.
Sounds great. Thank you, Lynn. One piece of right off the top, we've talked about this before, is the concept of having a master plan process is hopefully a target, something that we could try to achieve in the coming years. On late last week, we were made aware of a grant opportunity that would allow us to submit for grant funds that would allow us to, if not completely, significantly most of the costs to do a master plan. And we did put an application in for that. The master plan process is a planning process. Planning board, obviously Martha Morrison and I will be working very closely on that if the funding does come through. But I did have a chance to talk with Martha, and so we'll see where that ends up landing. We were hopeful we could do an earmark again like we did last year in the state budget, but the state delegation did not want to in this instance. So this was the alternative that we landed on for this year, or at least in the immediate for the funding of it. But it's exciting. We'll see what happens, and hopefully by next month we'll have some more information to provide to everybody around that. But in my mind, there's obviously it's going to be led by the planning board, but there'll be a number of places where the community and I would think the ECDC, I don't want to speak for you, Martha, but I would think the ECDC and members of this group absolutely would have a role in the process that we'll be undertaking if we're successful. So again, more to come on that, but just some exciting news that we got the application in, and we'll see where it goes.
Great. If I could just say, we've been through this before with our sort of mini master plan, the 418 plan that we did. And the process is that we establish a planning committee, a master plan committee, and that typically it includes selectmen, representatives of various boards, and of course, citizens. And so the ECDC members would certainly be a very important part of all of this, because what you're working on would tie in with the economic development piece of a master plan. So yes, we will be including lots of people.
And Kevin, do you know when we're supposed to hear back whether we were awarded the grant?
I don't have a definitive date at this time, Lynn, but we got it in, and we started to line up some of the stakeholders to help support the effort at the state level, and we wanted to get that ball rolling. And then my plan is to circle back in the next few days, maybe early next week, and just get a better handle of where they're at. Ensure that we have the support, like I said, from the state delegation, and ensuring that they're going to either a letter or a phone call, whatever they could do, just to let people know that this is important to the town and so on and so forth. So, no, in the next week or so, I'll certainly have some more information, including when we expect to hear back on the grant opportunity.
That's great. And Martha, how long would you say a master planning process takes if we get the grant?
It's a lengthy process. It is a very lengthy process. And the reason we need a grant is that we end up with a facilitator. It may be MAPC or someone from MAPC. Last time around, we actually hired a firm, RKG planners, and they were very, very good. It took them a long time to dig up all the data. And then we had many public meetings, to go over all of this. So it's a long process. I think Kevin would agree. This isn't something that gets thrown together, because a really important part of it is gathering community input, so that the plan does actually represent the, the vision of the community. The first thing you have to come up with is a vision statement. What is Topsfield? What's the vision of the community? And even that becomes, a very complicated process, because you have to bring in all of these different visions that people have and produce some kind of coherent statement about what the town is supposed to be. So I can't give you an exact date, but it's not going to be a couple of months. I mean, I would imagine that this would be more like the municipal vulnerabilities project that's been going for many, many months, almost a year, I would say, in the work that was done even before we started to participate.
Okay.
Lynn, we did one in Beverly when I was there, and it typically can be anywhere from a 12 to 16, 18 month process, depending on the scope of the work and that we're requesting of the consultant. The more community involvement, the longer the process, and also the more expensive the process. But it's essential to, as Martha said, that it is community driven, what the findings are that come out of that process. So, if we're going to do it right, if we get $100,000, the scope could probably be about a 14-month, give or take, plus or minus, on that. And it depends on the consultant too, and how much time they can dedicate to it, as well as our resources locally to support those efforts.
Mm-hmm. And we also have, for instance, the existing open space plan, and that open space is one of the 9 components of a master plan. That is a very extensive plan that is basically, you don't have to do it all over again. There are other parts of there are 9 elements, in a master plan. And there are other pieces that already have plans, and that there are existing plans. And so the first thing that we would do with a consultant is to actually go through what do we have already, that's in good shape and that doesn't need updating. Remember, the open space plan had public hearings, and there was a lot of public input, to the open space plan. So that kind of meets the criteria, of a lot of community input. The library has a plan, the highway department has a plan, the water department has a plan. I mean, we have a lot of plans out there that we can review, update if need be, but use them instead of having to pay a consultant to go and do it all over again.
Yep.
I do have one point, Lynn, if I could just make it, is that,
sure.
It's wonderful, again, to have master plans and all kinds of plans and studies I've been involved with in the town. And then how do we prevent them from getting put into a drawer that collects dust and no one refers to them? I mean, that's a critical factor in all of this planning that goes on to make sure future boards, when we have these turnovers and they don't have the history of the fact that this plan was created, to be following a plan. Yes. How do we ensure that? I mean, Kevin, how did Beverly do that?
Yeah, so basically, they just wrapped theirs. It actually we set a 14-month schedule. I think it went almost to, gosh, how long have it's probably 2 years. in their entire start to finish. What will happen is there'll be recommendations, again, born from the conversations we have with the community, existing reports and documentation that we have. And through that report, and because it's a community process and driven, at town meeting at a subsequent year, we'll be bringing forward, presumably, changes that are aligned with that report, aligned with the community's vision and our vision for zoning changes and other types of policies. That doesn't have to go tell me about the policies and procedures that we might want to create other places to ensure we continue with the protecting our resources, our assets, but also identifying the locations and that we might want to see some growth opportunities at. So, Jen, I'd say, partnering with Martha, we're very fortunate to have a talented planning board and a leader in Martha who knows the ins and outs of it. And I think that there's going to be a big part of, I think having that strong planning board coupled with the desire from the select board and from what I've heard through the community, and I'd say myself as well in town hall, we get to the finish line. That next step is bringing it forward. The recommendations we think are most important immediately to keep it moving.
Yeah, if I could say, that's what we did after the EO 418. There were a bunch of recommendations in terms of economic development. What we did was to revise all of the zoning on Route 1, for instance, to allow retail out there. That we did where we could. The planning board put forward to town meeting, and frankly, they all passed a series of recommendations about zoning changes that, were recommended as part of this process. So what Kevin said is absolutely what we've done before, and sure, it's what we would do again.
Great, thank you. Kevin?
Sure. So, yeah, that was great. I appreciate the chance to elaborate a little more on the master plan. It's important. The other quick updates I just want to say is our town website. We're targeting hopefully by the end of this month to actually launch the new website. It may or may not go a little bit longer or not, depending on some final tweaks to it. I want to make sure it's 100% before we launch it. I don't want to see us putting something out and then having to make multiple edits. And that's both the content that's in the website that's being transposed over into the new design, but also the design where things are located. For instance, I really want to spend, and I have been spending some time on the drop down, government, schools, community, et cetera, at the top bar. Right now, my humble opinion, I don't think there's a consistency of where things are located. I think we can do that a little bit better to make it more intuitive. But those are the details that we're working on through the website, and so that's sort of our timeline at this point. But it's exciting. It'll be another sort of fresh look, new design element that we're looking to incorporate. And I'd also just want to say again a big thank you to the Topsfield Garden Club and all the volunteers who helped us with our flowers downtown. I'm sure most of us, hopefully all of us, have seen the hanging baskets off the light poles. Martha and I were actually talking about this earlier today. The lights itself, actually, I think it took a lot less time to actually, the components of the light, as much as the how we wanted to capture the flowers coming off the pole, because that was so important, because that's what catches your eye more than anything else. And we spent a really good amount of time looking at all different options of how those baskets would hang, what they would look like. And, they're out there today, and I think personally they look phenomenal. And that's a big thank you to everybody who, Lynn, Martha, Kim, so many people pitched in on trying to help us get that right. And I think we did. It's a really nice look in the downtown. In addition to that, also the ground mounted planters that we had for town meeting, which we then moved to sort of the gateway of as you head into the downtown. We also have one down at the rail trail, and we have two located at the parklet as well, which provide both some aesthetics but safety when it comes to having another barrier there. Somebody ever wasn't paying attention when they were driving and veered off. But the flowers really make the downtown bloom. It looks amazing. And I'll also add too, it was right before Memorial Day. We purchased a number of American flags that we hung on the telephone pole or the utility poles through the common and into the downtown and past the rail trail, which my understanding was it was done years ago, but it was revived. Kudos to Chief Collins Brown, Gary Wilds, and others who helped pull that together and put those up there. And we were coming down in the convoy during the event, and the downtown was packed with people. It was pretty neat to see everybody as we made our way through the end of the event and towards the cemetery, how many people were out there, and you could see the flowers just popping and the flags hanging. And it was just a really, really, I think that's what Topsfield's all about. I think that was pretty neat. And it took a lot of people behind the scenes to make it happen. So I just want to acknowledge and thank people for their efforts to help make that all come together.
Kevin, I just throw in there also a big thank you to Sarah and the TCP for funding all those flowers that went up in the solar lights.
Yes,
there's a lot of background work from this team to pull it together. And then that was the final,
absolutely
activity that made it happen. It's the funding.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's all the people in town. A lot of people in town contributed to that, which was really nice.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave you out, but we wouldn't have happened without you folks, and we appreciate it greatly. Like I said,
we seem to have lost Kim, but I think it's important to note that she did all of the initial research on those planters, and it was a huge effort and a scramble to get all of the information together. So we've lost her, but I really, think that she deserves a big shout out, for all that she did. And then getting them put together when we were working down on the common. Where is she? Is she coming? There's Kim. Kim. We're just giving you credit for doing all of the hard work to choose the planters.
And not only choose, but also the legwork to do the analysis on how to maintain them, the watering and the costing of that, and whether it's in-house or done by a vendor. So thank you, Kim. That was a tremendous amount of work, and it looks gorgeous.
Yeah, they do look really nice. I would like just to, next time you guys are walking downtown, I still think they could be spun so that as you're driving, you see two baskets instead of one. Right now they're parallel to the street. And I think if they went perpendicular, the impact would be greater. And I know that you said, you did it that way so that no one would hit their heads. So just if you walk around downtown to see if you think that is the case or not. But in any case, I think they look fantastic, and looking forward to throughout the summer, how they're going to look.
Great. All right. Next item, Kevin.
Last item for the updates is the VHB work. So Jeffrey Morrison from VHB has been working, just to recap, he's been working with the town for some time now, helping us with sort of our putting some definition behind what we want to do in our downtown, from standardizing benches and, if there's any treatments to the sidewalks we want to accent with brick or something like that. And then in addition to that, the standardization is, and what's known as the kit of parts, is 3 locations have been identified for sort of renditions of what's possible, beautification, et cetera. First being the entrance into the downtown, the second being the 2 planters and the space next to T-Hop, that sort of general area, because it's sort of the middle of our downtown. And the third being the old highway garage. The old highway garage, as we move forward as we have the rezoning now associated with it, we've also we have the approval to move forward with the disposition in the future. Those images that you'll see in a few minutes will be part of the package that we share with others to help their creative minds see what's possible in that space. So those are the 3 locations. This is sort of like last month when I updated everybody on the signs. It was sort of a point in time. We got far enough down the road. We weren't at a final product, but far enough down the road that I wanted to share the image with everybody and get some initial feedback. Same thing here. We've got the first take on these 3 locations. One, the garage is much more thoroughly done. The other two, there's still some work that needs to be done, but want to share them with everybody and give everybody an update on that. Because I'm on vacation and I have to use my cell phone for purposes like this, I don't have ability to share screen. So Chair Bermudez has been nice enough to offer to share her screen with these images.
Everyone say okay?
Yep.
So so I'm looking on my cell phone, so it's very small. So I believe this is the existing conditions of the entrance on 97 as you head towards Main Street. We know just statistically, we've got about a 40,000 plus or minus vehicles a week that go down 97 or up 97. And then we know in the downtown from some traffic counts we've done, we have about half of that go into the downtown area. Those data points are being updated so that we have a better handle on how much traffic we're getting. Again, that's going to be part of our story we tell with the garage, but for all of our downtown businesses and other businesses that might want to invest in our downtown and start a shop or retail, coffee shop, restaurant, whatever it might be, traffic counts are really important. So we're trying to gather that data so we can share it with people. I share that with you because there's a lot of traffic that comes through this area. And we've always talked about trying to bring people into the downtown, make it intuitive as much as possible, but without changing the historical feel of what we have and the very New England town center that we have. So we spoke with Jeffrey. We gave him some sort of general ideas of what we might want to see. And from that, he created an updated version of the same view you're seeing here. So Lynn, if you want to pull that one up.
You guys may have to move the little screenshots of us off to the side to see the right-hand side of this. I know the sign is being blocked on my screen.
Yeah, so a couple things going on in this image here. A few things. One, he continued the light poles right up to this intersection. Light poles, it could be the solar lights or a different type of light. You know, if the historic district, the solar light design doesn't meet their expectations, maybe we go in a different direction. But at any rate, the idea would be to bring lights into this area coming off the downtown eventually, if it makes sense, if the community thinks it's a good idea, if the historic commission agrees with it as well. So there's some light poles that have been built into this image to consider that for the future. In addition to that, on the right-hand side, you'll see a monument sign. That is VHB just putting a stock image into that area. They did that because as we all know, based on our last meeting, we're working on possibly having a entrance sign to the downtown, to the town center in that general area, probably pushed back closer to where the town hall sign is located, not so close to the crosswalk. And the design is not that. We've talked about that. It's going to be something different, which has been shared with VHB, the most recent updated version of that sign, just so as they're working through their renditions, they can impose that. So it has more of a custom feel to Topsfield. But the idea is to put a sign there. So as you approach that intersection, as half the people call it, take that left, if not more, there's a sign there that directs people to know that there's shopping and dining in the town center ahead as well. And I'll note the question was posed, well, what's going to happen with the town hall sign where we could put information? And the last working group session with the sign committee, the steering committee, one of the homework assignments, it's probably a bad way to put it, but one of the things that we were looking to do was to see if there's another option for that sign. Do we move it up onto the other side of the crosswalk? So before you even get to that intersection or at that intersection, but on the other side, so it doesn't compete with the monument sign. Do we move it back? Do we design wise, is it a smaller scale, or is it what that looks like to be determined, but it's something that's part of the discussion. So I just wanted to make sure people knew that it's not a zero sum replacing one sign for the other. But we want to get it right. We want to get, from a design standpoint, both elements, an entrance sign and the town hall events and activity sign. So
Kevin,
that's sort
can I
of
ask a question?
Certainly, absolutely.
Before you leave that sign, you mentioned it in this picture, it's up near the corner. So you sort of see it when you're at that those, I call it five corners really, but that intersection. But you said that you were thinking it would go further back. What was the reasoning behind that?
So VHB and OmLoop, those are two consultants, one on this VHB doing this and OmLoop's doing our signs. Generally felt like it might fit better if it was pulled back from that corner. Not tremendously far back, but far enough so it's not right there, but if you look straight ahead, you wouldn't miss it. Up for debate. We don't have a firm location, but that was based on really the consultants sort of somewhat steering that conversation more than anything else. I don't know, Zilly, if you have an opinion on it, please, I'd welcome the feedback.
Yeah, no, it did strike me when you first opened the image, you see it, it's so visible that I liked that. So I just wondered if it would have the risk of getting lost in the background if it's too far back. That's all.
Sure.
I have one question, Lynn, for Martha, and I don't think Kendra is here. I know everybody's going to be horrified with this suggestion, but could you have below that sign the ticker tape of the events that are happening in town that's LED? Or is that just completely forbidden?
So LED is not allowed in the district. And I did talk with Brian about, in the group, our steering committee, Jay, we talked about, can we incorporate the two together? And it was really, we're trying to convey two messages, and then trying to put it on one sign. And it really took away, I think, it became a little bit more of a bulletin board than what we wanted it to be. What I know is important, I think, in our next town hall information sign is to possibly shorten it a little bit. This is my opinion. I haven't shared this with our steering committee yet, but I think it's really important we have the website there underneath, like, for instance, town events, a little area for just, Memorial Day activities, this date, and then below it, being permanent, saying something like www.topsfield-ma.gov. So then people are pushed to the website rather than trying to explain everything as people are driving by in their car at 20 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that we talked about, and I think it comes into play here too, is that we have to consider the future of that triangle, that the memory tree is on its way out. And we know it's only a matter of time before it's going to be dead or will have to be removed. And then the two little replacement trees that are there are really not in very good locations. When they grow, they're going to be covering the sidewalk and the street and everything else. So that whole triangle needs to be sort of reworked. And as the location of the signs, if those locations get chosen, they have to be, we have to think about what's going to be there in the future.
Right. Because if you come down 97, and I remember this was part of our homework too, that I have gotten to yet, is if you go down and you think about not having the memory tree there, that it will open up town hall, that you'll see that more so than you do now. So that being said, is once the memory tree does come down, town hall will be a focal point. Yeah. And maybe these identity signs would need to be reworked a little bit, or just something to think about, because town hall, if we take the big spruce down, you'll have something, wow.
Yeah, you'll be able to see the whole facade.
Right, the whole Gothic. Gothic town hall.
The whole
with
thing.
the rooster. The weather vane.
Yeah, we'll see the rooster.
Yeah. So we still have to do our homework.
No worries. We have nothing this week. I'm not going to call a meeting while I'm in New Jersey, so no worries.
Okay.
So the other thing I would just mention is, I talked with Jeffrey about how dynamic, how, how much did we want to put attention on building something around that monument sign as you approach? And the general consensus was, don't overdo it. Put enough there to beautify it, but don't overdo it. The attention should be to the sign. And so you'll see there that on this side of the road, where the sign is, there's some flowers there. There's some beautification that takes place, but it's not too in your face. That said, if you flip to the other side of the road, there's a much more dynamic proposal that VHB submitted, and that's around the Veterans Plaza. Jeffrey was saying how his field research and just coming out and looking at the downtown, this is really a focal point in front of the library with the Veterans Plaza. We certainly, in my opinion, we want to be very careful what we do there. We need to bring the veterans into the conversation because that's sacred ground. That's their space as far as I'm concerned. But there's no reason why we shouldn't try to design it and see if there's ways to improve it. So what you'll see on the left-hand side in this image here is a flower bed that's been created at the corner there, and then some split rail fencing that goes on either end of it. When this was sent to us, we looked at it, we went back and said, first, there needs to be some breaks in the fencing so that people can access the space. And second, that it might be a little too much height-wise with the split rail fence, and then maybe look at doing it a little bit differently. And also that the color, the tie into the lights and some of our kit of parts, the post might be better suited to be a darker color to go along with that potentially as well. So he was going to go back and do some more, take another stab at trying to incorporate some of the feedback in regards to that side of the road. But this is his first sort of attempt at this version of a design for the entrance into the downtown area. So,
Kevin, I have one other functional issue with the design that if you could pass on the left side with the memorial green. Yep. The school buses, they turn, they come down in front of town hall, and some of them turn onto Main Street, and they kind of go onto the grass or the shoulder a little bit in order to make that turn.
Okay.
So just be aware that the bus turning radius needs to be accounted for.
And that's why I think that's must be why Gary's planting that grass out there the last couple of weeks.
Well, I was just going to say, you can tell where that happens because it's that little patch that they've been trying to repair.
Right. Right. No, that's great, Sarah. Thank you. I'll make sure I mention that to Jeffrey as well. So this is the entrance. Feel free if anyone has any feedback, you can email me. We could set up a time to talk through anything. But this is sort of our first, at least Jeffrey's first stab at trying to create a little bit of a gateway heading into that downtown area. So,
any general feedback, guys, taking a look at it?
Just to add something, Martha and Kim, you remember this from Main Street that many, many years ago with Hugh Collins, who's a professional landscape designer out of Hamilton, Wyndham. He completely redesigned that whole intersection there for us. And it was just a crazy, wonderful design. But one of the things that he did use was black chain link bollards with a chain and the, I don't know what you would call it, just bollards is what he kept referring to it. And it really looked wonderful. And that would be a possibility instead of having such fencing, like, you know what I mean by a bollard? It's like a black ball on it looks very artistic and historic.
Right. You could see them down on the ports, Newburyport.
Yeah,
Right.
he kind of had that design, and I still have the plan. I got the
Yeah.
whole entire plan. So
It was really nice.
Yeah.
It did frame it, but it wasn't so overpowering.
right, it was a little
It was
bit more
just that black chain that draped from the
drapes. Yeah, from one.
It was a much more formal presentation than this. That's sort of like a paddock. I mean, it's a post and rail. And I know it's supposed to be sort of rural, but Hugh's design was really appropriate for a veterans green with monuments, and the chain, it just looked so much nicer than these upright posts and rails. So do you still have that, Janet?
I have that whole plan. I mean, I don't want to horrify everybody, but his plan really included relocating the monument to that fork in the road and doing all the roads over to a roundabout that was wonderful. And the whole design of this location would be completely different. But then when we realized it was millions of dollars, we went, oh, that's not a good idea.
Wasn't that getting rid of the shortcut too?
Yeah,
onto Washington Street, getting rid of that.
Yes,
Right.
that would become more of some parking and grass. You would not have that section of High Street extension between the church and Town Hall. You'd make that whole intersection would be more simplified.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful plan. It's a beautiful plan, but it was, this was 10 years ago, and it was.
And instead, we got the town sign instead.
Yes. Well, we did do the Veterans Memorial Green. I mean, we did move all the monuments that were scattered from the skies that looked like they dropped down from aliens. They were located all over town. And that's how we created that, is we just said we have to simplify and consolidate and put everything in this area in front of the library. And that's how that came about.
Janet,
would you
mind
forward
sending
that?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. Could you forward it to Kevin?
I will drop it at Town Hall. It's a big plan. It's an architectural plan. It's a giant plan.
Okay,
So-
that'd be great.
Yeah.
So even if it's too overwhelming, because he did just do everything, I think taking a look at the details, particularly the fencing, that he's using, and the black wrought iron bollards with the
They're
chain.
very,
We think of how nice that would look with a lamppost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
It looks-
high-end lamppost.
I think it'll be very attractive.
Agreed.
And with, not to keep dwelling on it, but with the sway and the for plowing purposes and stuff, you could still get snowbanks under this chain. It's movable. It's not static like this fencing. I can just see that might cause problems, with snow.
Yeah. No, I think we'll take a look at what if you could, Janet, it'd be great. I'd love to look at it. Maybe we could take elements of it and see if it incorporates better, for sure.
Okay, sounds good.
Janet,
Did you
you could
want me to move
probably,
to the next one?
Yeah, Lynn, if you want to go to the garage, the before and after, that'd be great.
Okay, let's see if I can. Yeah, a second. Right now my buttons aren't working. Hang on, let me see if I can. I may have to get out and in again. I'm sorry. Let me stop for a second and start again. And I won't blow it up all the way. I don't know why it's doing that. Let's see. Silence and share. Okay. Oh, remote control. All right, this is just not cooperating. All right, I'm sorry, guys. Yeah.
Lynn, I might have them.
Let me try this one instead, which is not the expanded view, and then I can just go to I'll click to it. So that's the next set, Kevin, the old garage.
So we all know the old garage. There it is in its current form. What VHB did was provide us some ideas on what could be possible there for that space, which is what is here. See the formation of the sidewalk, pulling back and creating some space there with the flower beds. Because there will be probably the parking lot will have to be redone, likely from Concom. Well, likely it has to be done anyway, but Concom will probably require some mitigation to the driveway anyway, as it relates to where the stream is. But the really neat thing with this image is I love the outdoor dining concept, the garage doors, the clean look of the building. We've been able to share it with a few people, and people have responded very well to this design, or at least the concept of what's possible in that space. And so, this is, like I said, this is mostly for us to be able to help market the property now, that we have the ability to try to find somebody to do something productive in that space. There's also a couple other images separate from this slide deck that VHB provided, showing the location of the building and the access in and out of the space, which can also be used. But a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I think this really hopefully captures a lot of what we're trying to ultimately see happen in that space at the end of the day.
Looks great. I love it.
Thanks, Kim. If you know anybody who wants to open a restaurant there, let me know.
I'll have to show the ladies at the box top shop what's the potential.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
think of all the sales after lunch.
I know they can all go to lunch and
wine and shop.
Wine and shop and wine. Oh God.
So this
Kevin,
yes.
how is the sidewalk going to connect to School Avenue? Is the sidewalk?
So it's not flushed out to as a final concept that would be provided to you folks at the planning board. For instance, it's more of trying to incorporate an access from obviously Main Street down to the building. The idea is, one of the things I spoke with, and there's a way to get there. I just don't know what it is at the end of the day. But doing a little pedestrian bridge over the brook, because there's width issues with the culvert that exists at School Ave. So this might be something that goes next to it with a little pedestrian footbridge that goes over the brook, which could look really nice if done well. Could maybe even put a couple lights, maybe or maybe not with some lights potentially to as you access over the bridge. There might be some issues with some of the neighbors, but there's some ideas, there's some thoughts of possibly doing something like that. It hasn't been flushed out yet though, Martha, to say, this is the exact location, this is the width, this is the design yet, but the idea is in some way to connect the building to Main Street.
Right. Well, that's one thing that we've talked about, looking at the right of way of School Avenue and to see what the town does have, a wider right of way on School Avenue than what's paved. And so I'm sure, VHB will take that into consideration. Certainly an engineer will when they come back to the planning board for approval,
right,
of the road and all of that. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Any other thoughts on this, or should I move on? All right.
So the last image Lynn's going to bring up is the image of T-Hop Country Farm in the former Santander space. You can see there's the two planters in there. You see the side of the Country Farm building, the peeling paint. T-Hop's done some nice work with the windows and the planters out front. But to the right of the building, which I believe might be actually partly owned by TIOP, partly by Flomp, Peter Flomp's property. That area it needs some improvements for sure. And I've always said, that's the epicenter of our downtown. Coming off of School Ave, if we get something interesting in that space in the garage, coming up to this location here, this is where all the activity can happen. It would be great to have areas where people can get together, or sit, relax, or gather. And so, speaking with Jeffrey about that, and understanding that there's a real desire on the beds. You can see that the image has been up, the updates on the image there, is to beautify those two beds. I know TCPs and led by Sarah are really excited about the opportunity to do something in those spaces, which would be great because they're just the widest sidewalks we have. And right now, we've just got some. I think whatever we do there is going to be significantly better than what exists today, and I think we could certainly beautify that. You can see that it's there's a lot of needs there. So specifically, what Jeffrey's done here is, if you look, we'll go from left to right on the screen. You'll see the far bed with some plantings proposed to go in there. And then you look at the side of Country Farm. He's actually incorporated the potential for a mural, which I thought was pretty neat. A historical image of that's not necessarily Topsfield, but a historical image of Topsfield on the side of the building might look really, really nice if we could find a grant or something like that could hopefully allow us to do it. If the owners are willing to let us do something like that to beautify that space, because that building is the worst building in our downtown. And that's worse than Flomp's property. I know everyone is very super focused on Peter Flomp's, but this is frontage. This is right down in the middle of our downtown. That building, there has to be something improved in that exterior of that building at the very least. You'll also notice too, the ice machine there, maybe there's opportunities to move that to the side, or something like that might be aesthetic improvement to that area and that space. But I've talked with our building inspector about this. They've got 2 neon signs that are electrified, and they're just, they think there's new ownership there, and now's the time to sort of get them right with what our expectations are of them, and for our downtown. So I do plan in the coming weeks to speak with the new ownership and sort of get a sense for what they want to do, or what we would like to see them do, and try to build a relationship with those folks. If you continue down to the second planter, the second bed, you'll notice there's no height involved there. We talked through this a little bit. We'd all said we'd love to see a tree or something like right there to sort of add some green to the space. Problem is that the overhead wires going into T-hop could become problematic with a tree as it matures in that space. So we talked about it. I'm not sure where Jeffrey's going to land on it, but it was something that we talked about a little bit. And then if you continue to move down all the way to the right, you can see a little snippet of an image of the space next to the T-hop. Full disclosure, there's a compressor there that is hard infrastructure built into the side of the building that in this image doesn't exist. Jeffrey took that out just so we had because the image doesn't extend far enough to really capture what that entirety could be. So he sort of said, okay, I'll give a little image of what's possible, knowing that the compressor's there. We could buffer that compressor if we're able to get and do something in that space next to the building. But a couple things with the hardscape that's going on there. You've got sort of an orangey brick, which I'm not. I like the town hall brick color, the cranberryish, reddish, maroonish colors. That's a personal preference. I think it's a little more historical. This is a little too orange for my liking, but that's one opinion. You'll notice he put some granite bollards in there to sort of identify the space. The idea would be to put benches in there, maybe some greenery in other areas too. But this is just a very, 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 very high level sort of just do something here so we can have a little imagery around improving that if it's possible. The other thing I'll note is that there's a brick inlay going along between the curb and the sidewalk. When we went through the process of the solar lights, we realized pretty quickly that we do not have very wide sidewalks except for in this particular location. Typically, when you see this band, it runs the length of the downtown. It's usually the traditional way that these brick inlays work. When I spoke with Jeffrey, I said, I prefer we probably take that strip out only because we won't be able to continue it. And I think there's places where if we did a more traditional infrastructure improvement to put a permanent bump out in certain locations, that might be primed for maybe a brick inlay or some sort of accent to just having the poured concrete which exists today. So he took that into consideration, and I'm not sure exactly what he's going to come back with, but that was one of the thoughts that I had relative to that strip. Strip looks fine, just doesn't work in Topsfield because of the way the sidewalks are today. And I think that is generally it from this image at this first sort of glance at what they're thinking. I do know, like I said, that TCP, even before we started this process, was interested in improving the two raised beds. I don't know, Sarah, if you want, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I don't know if you want to say maybe a couple words on what you folks are thinking in with regards to that.
Yeah, I'd love to. And I'd love to get people's feedback. Kevin and I have spoken about this a couple of times, but way back in 2000, hold on one second, please. Back in the fall of 2019, Nick Benedetto of ND Landscaping put together a proposal or, a design for us for the bed that is between what was the Santander Bank and Country Farm. And what's different about what we had wanted to do there and what you see here was that we included a patio area, with potential to put a bench or some other kind of seating. Because that bed is so big, we felt like that was a really good opportunity in town to create another little spot where people could sit and have a cup of coffee or conversation or that kind of thing. We would love to be able to make that accessible, handicap accessible. But Kevin is concerned that the grade, when we might not have the ability to create an accessible entrance to it. So, and that's just something we're looking into. And when VHB developed this, they came up with the idea of making a bench area to the right of Topsfield House of Pizza. So I guess my question for everyone here is, if our organization pursues raising money and improving these two beds, what do you guys think about including a seating area in the one in front of Country Farm?
You know what, my honest opinion, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. You're looking at the old Cumberland Farms facade that looks awful, no matter how much you put in front of it. I mean, if I was going to put our money anywhere, whoever money it is, I would work with the owners to do something with that white big facade up top and put a box around the ice machines. Just put like a nice, attractive outer cabinet that they're inside of, so that it doesn't look like two big ice boxes, you're staring at. I just think the facade needs to be dealt with. And then the beds are wonderful, but again, it's going to be maintenance. It's going to be what kind of plants are in there and what kind of maintenance they require. But I just think the facade of Cumberland is just like Kevin said, it's just like a big focal point in town, and that's what you see. And I think that's the thing we need to really do a big facade improvement on.
I think you have to work with what you have. And this is, I mean, it's their property, so you can only do so much with it. I love the mural. I hope it's a local artist. Hopefully it's a Topsfield artist that we get through there. And I think that a couple more benches just gives more people places to sit and eat if they're going to be downtown, no matter where they are. If they're going to get a coffee or a slushie from Cumberland Farms, or if they're going to get House of Pizza stuff, keeping them in the downtown so they can sit and actually take a few minutes to look around and see there's other stuff here. I like the idea of a few more benches in either in these beds or wherever.
I love that idea, but I think there's low interest loans that we could maybe approach some of the banks to do. I mean, we have like 5 banks in town to be able to help them to do something with the facade. I mean, you guys help.
Well, I agree with you 100%. When I look at this picture, it's so ugly.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, we would love to help them with facade improvement. I feel like this particular building needs so much that the budget would be, you know, well beyond what our organization could do, I think. But maybe we could help them with a new sign. That would help. That little blue country farm sign. But the landscaping, maybe I'll pull up. Do you want me to pull up the design ND did? Because I think that there's also a fence in the alley between the two buildings that's falling down. But hang on a second. Lynn, can you stop sharing for a minute?
Sure.
Okay.
While you're pulling that up. Oh,
go ahead, Zilly. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I can't remember when, but we were in, I think it was Lexington, and they had a number of places where they just had a couple of benches facing each other, like along the sidewalk. It was really sweet. I love that idea, but I also know that a lot of this, I'm also going to be curious about what the town's plan is for helping with dealing with trash downtown, because that's often an issue for the business owners. And then I don't see a lot of, we have the beautiful new solar lamps. I don't see waste receptacles that match the look of the historic downtown. And I know we've tried that in the past, but I know that historically it's always been a problem for the owners of businesses when people use the downtown trash bins inappropriately.
Right.
Something we'll have to be considering as we add more opportunities for awesome hanging around.
I'm wondering if you know how you did a nice rendition of what the highway garage could look like. Is there a way, I don't know how much it would cost, but for VHB to do something like that for the country farms? Because maybe if we showed them this is what you could look like, it would bring more business to them if it was appealing.
Kim, that's something that our organization might be willing to do. So we actually worked with Topsfield House of Pizza. Ben Nutter came up with a design for them, which they're partway through implementing. They've replaced the windows and the door. And then the rest of the design included some different siding and a new sign and lighting on the top. Mm-hmm. We also had him do a sketch for gills to show what it could look like if you separated it, mm-hmm. if you took down the overhang and made it a self-standing building again. Right. So, that's something that our organization, I could talk with our board about, tapping Ben Nutter to come up with something that we can present and show them the possibilities. Because I think with VHB, we're probably through our funding.
Yeah, for this project, for sure. I would say, I've tried really hard to build a relationship with the country farms from when I got here to now, and there's a certain business model, as I think I'm learning through this process, where the aesthetics of the building is just unfortunately for them is not something they typically care about. Obviously, otherwise the building would look better than it does. They paint the side of the building. I mean, I could do that on a weekend for them. You know what I mean? It's not heavy lifting. They choose not to. It was like the sign, the large sign that we had them take down a year ago. It took forever, and it took us actually finding them to get them to move it. So they're a tough one. But I think if there's facade improvement grant opportunities where they can apply for a grant to offset or to complement funds they put in, or maybe it's greater than that. I don't know. I mean, we might be able to get them to a better place where at the very least we could put a mural up, right? And maybe a sign improvement. And the landscaping, whatever we do in front of there is going to look tremendously better. And I think that I do have to give Sarah and her group huge kudos, because it's a terrible looking building, but it's sort of like the garage. You can control your own destiny with only what you can control to a certain extent. And if we could do the beds, if we able to offer improvements to their signs, do a mural, get that ice machine either blocked, buffered, or out of there, get them to take off the electric signs and maybe take down some of the posters, two for $1 deals on their glass. That might be, it won't get us 100% there, but it might make a lot of the little things in aggregate could add up to something that makes that building look a lot better. But it's going to take a lot of small steps, I think, to get there. And I think what Sarah, you're proposing now is at least in how I've interpreted it, is something we can control and something that we can make at least the initial curb appeal in that front area drastically better.
Yeah. What's interesting about this bed is that the town owns most of it. I think, I can't remember exactly, but I think that the buildings own about 4 feet out. But anyway, this was the plan that ND Landscaping came up with. So they put kind of a shrub to block the alley. Mm-hmm. The tree has already come down, and then they had kind of a paver area and some plantings. And hold on a second. Those are like the kind of colors. I've talked to Martha about getting her input, because we wouldn't do anything without the input of Martha, Kim, you guys. This is not my sweet spot. But anyway, that the question is like, do we just do the landscaping, or do we add a paver patio?
So Sarah, is that just
Can
one?
I say something?
Is it just one bench that's there? Is that what I'm saying?
That is in what he drew, but we had talked about at one point maybe some like rounded benches too, or
Okay, Kathleen, were you asking?
Well, I was going to say, we missed a lot of grants that are already closed for this year, but it sounds like this is going to be a slow process anyways. But I know there's going to be a couple of grants that will end in April or May of next year. And one of them could help them with a sign, and one of them could pay for the mural. And so if they didn't have to pay for that, at least we'd be moving them in the right direction.
Yeah.
Kathleen, did you put in that grant for the mural?
I didn't, because I really didn't have time to sit down and ask Kevin what he would like. So I
Okay, thanks.
Do you think that they are open to this type of updating if it is paid for by somebody else?
To be determined. I need to talk with them. I know the last ownership really was dragging to do anything except to pay. The only thing I got them to actually give me an honest answer to was when I gave them a notice from Glenn saying they were getting fined $200 a day if they didn't take the sign down. And then lo and behold, within a couple of days, the sign came down. But it was more of a stick than a carrot approach with the last ownership group. I'm hopeful with this next group, we can get to a carrot approach and say, listen, we want to give you folks money and grants and opportunities to help beautify your space, add value. I don't know yet. I've met the people who are working there, and I just haven't had a chance to meet the new ownership yet. But that's something in the next few weeks I hope to do.
So Kevin, has the building been sold?
I'm sorry?
Has the building been sold? It was owned by Turf something or another, that LLC in Webster. Have they sold it?
My understanding when I went in there the other few weeks ago is, and I knew that the existing owner was looking to sell the business. And I believe they did. I don't know if they sold it within the family or not. I've got to find that out. Again, getting information has been a little difficult, but my understanding is that there's new ownership of the business. I don't know if the property itself traded or not. I haven't seen anything on Registry of Deeds, but I haven't looked for a few weeks either.
So what's your approach on that? Do you approach if the property is not owned by the people who own the business, often commercial leases are a little different, who do you approach for that? Because the building owner might be a little more open to the structure part of it and the painting and the changing the front of it, whereas they don't really get to control that as just a commercial owner or a commercial lease, if it's a lease.
It's a commercial real estate company of some type, and they're not even in Topsfield.
Right. So they might be more open to this approach of like making the building nicer, whereas you won't even really have to deal with the owner of the convenience store part of it. They might not have a choice on the exterior of the building because they rent the space inside.
And just so we can all be horrified, I believe that huge white cornice thing was an improvement done by Cumberland Farms. I think because the building itself was built in the 60s, and then Cumberland Farms owned it until 2017. So I seem to remember, and maybe others do too, that there was a facade improvement that Cumberland Farms did. And that's when they got an internally illuminated sign that they were not supposed to get. And then when these people took it over and changed the sign, because Cumberland Farms had one, they get to have their crummy, internally illuminated sign. So it's a problem building, and it would be interesting to see what it would look like if that huge white cornice thing
It's
were
awful.
removed. I mean, there's got to be something under there.
So Rosalie, to answer your question on the approach, I need to understand who owns what, who the players are, who the names are, understand that first and foremost, and then start having the conversation about, all the great things that we collectively have been working on, and then say, and now we want you to come along with us. And what can we do to help you and find those out, and then maybe find a way to align something that we're trying to do with what they're trying to do, or what they're willing to at least do. But we'll see how that goes. There's a lot of work that still needs to happen for sure.
Yeah. And I have this, so I help my parents with the Topsfield Pizza property, and that they share the driveway, and it's been impossible to coordinate with them over the past few years. We've tried a few times. So to Kevin's point, it's just very hard to decipher who's the decision maker for things with that building. But again, like if it's, and you got the tree down, like Sarah succeeded in getting a few things done there with that, because it was just like guess what? It's paid for and it's happening on this day. We're showing up. Okay, great. So I'm also, another thought I'm just having, I'll just put out there for you guys to kind of, as you're working on these ideas, is with the look of it, since it sounds like it's going to be too hard to make any major changes, maybe we consider leaning into the retro look, and instead of trying to make it look historic, instead kind of try to make it look sort of pop culture look. Like if you're going to do a new sign or do something with the ice machines, give it that like old Coke fridge look. Do you know what I'm talking about? That style that's like So maybe that's a different direction because it doesn't take away from what you were saying, which their business model is, well, we're making money. Why would we spend money on changing anything? We have our people, we have our customers that don't mind what we look like and they come in. It's unfortunate. And I know this because I think that my parents were that kind of business owner for a long time. So I'm familiar with it. It's a different mentality to shift it. So yeah, coming into their world a little is a good strategy.
And if they're not interested in doing anything with us, we still have control over that bed and that sidewalk to be able to put benches in the bed or put, Sarah, you mentioned before, a bike rack, because you usually find at least 6 or 7 bikes just strewn on the sidewalk there, and to improve the exterior. We don't need any go ahead from them on that, but maybe, to Zillie's point, showing them what could be without them investing any money, and take it a step at a time with them. But is there anything from preventing Sarah and her team from furthering the design there? Because right now we just have flowers from VHB. So could she move ahead in furthering that design? I know you talked about a handicap accessible, Sarah. Are you guys sold on that? I mean, we did talk before about who's the clientele who goes to Country Farms. It's the young kids going in for soda and candy and, people popping in and out. Would handicap accessible draw that particular demographic to hang out in front of Country Farms?
That's a good question. It may not even be possible, really, which is too bad. Which is why maybe we should focus. Kevin was thinking focus more on the other side of Topsfield House of Pizza, which would be easy to make an area that is handicap accessible. But I think about the area in front of the bake shop. I'm not sure that's handicap accessible.
No.
Yeah. There really isn't anywhere. So I don't know. That would be something like that would be really nice to do. So maybe we just do the landscaping, and then, if the opportunity arises on the other side of Topsfield House of Pizza, that's where we do a patio area.
Yeah, I agree. I can't see that those beds in front of Santander, the bank, and T-Hop are even big enough to really be accommodating to some kind of accessibility. I mean, you have to have a path that went in and have the seating, and they're not big. They're when you come right down to it. I mean, to the right, I remember with the was it VHB, that I really, really love the whole entrance to the Village Shopping Center being that whole seating area with the pagoda thing up top. And I mean, I think that looks wonderful. I think it'll be like a snowball's chance in hell we'll get that done with the flunks. But, I think that's where you get your accessibility.
Yeah.
Your real seating, accessibility, people participating and hanging out. I think right now it's just getting those nice beds planted, whichever way. I mean, I must say there was a tree there.
Yeah.
That very controversial to take it down or not take it down. And so to put another tree there, you might get into that all over again. But, to plant those 2 beds nicely would be great. And I think pursuing some kind of facade improvement, just a low interest loan from one of these banks. I mean, what do you call it, bank there, the Ipswich Bank. I mean, they're so community minded, and Santander is right next door. They abut each other. I mean,
but Santander's moved.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Bye-bye. So somebody else. So I just think that would be a great thing to do. Something, just make it, more attractive.
What about a 4-foot tall plant wall in front of the ice makers? Almost like a living wall.
You could do a grass.
You could do a living wall.
You could do the tall grasses. They grow really nice and tall.
Yeah.
That could hide it. Yeah, the grasses they grow, and they're low maintenance too.
That's
I
A
true.
little clapboard cabinet with a little roof, make it look like a, 1700s house. I mean, you could just open it up and there's ice.
Can
But
I ask? I just want to ask, like, I think to Martha, as maybe a zoning question. Does Topsfield have a set of standards? And I've only been doing this a short amount of time. Do they have a set of standards for like what a business is supposed to look like? Do we have like regulations and what they're allowed to do, improvements that they're supposed to make? Does that exist?
Zoning, Mass General Law does not allow zoning to dictate building materials and that kind of thing.
I just meant like conformity to like how the town is supposed to look, and
No,
we spent so
do
much
not.
time on that.
Yeah, we have no, in order to do that, and we did look at possibly doing it some time ago, you have to have a separate bylaw that's part of the town code, where you have a design code and it becomes part of the town code, but it can't come under zoning because of Mass General Law. What happens if anything is in the historic district, the Historical Commission controls the appearance. If anything goes before the ZBA for site plan review, the applicant has to show plans and design, and then there is some effort made for, on the part of the ZBA, to the extent that they can, to try to make things look appropriate. But no, we don't have any particular set of standards. It was determined that it would be far too difficult to come up with a set of standards. Jana, you might remember that. I think it was back, we were talking about that ages ago.
But the key was that Koppelman and Page, the town council, said at the time, and this was about liquor licensing. We wanted a cute little shop with, cheeses and nice little wines, and we just were afraid of who was going to get these licenses. And the one thing she said, you cannot legislate taste. So our
Right.
taste and what we think we want to see, you cannot dictate. And you can make these parameters of, like Martha would attest to, density and the number of parking spaces and this thing and that thing, but you cannot put taste into a bylaw. So you can't say, oh, it's got to be cute and it's got to be really attractive. You can't do that.
It's very difficult to come to any kind of agreement among people as to what is considered cute or what is considered appropriate. We even had architects in town cautioning against trying to develop one of these design commissions, saying that, that they become very restrictive and very controversial and very difficult. We did not pursue it at that time for all of those reasons.
I just more meant like building shape, like the side of that building, the paint is peeling, the bricks are starting to kind of, I just more meant like the structure. Like, do you have something in there that says you have to keep your structure in a certain way? Like if because the side of that building is
Building code's really the only mechanism that we have at the town level to enforce anything. And peeling paint obviously wouldn't be a violation. If there was a piece of material coming, say that white facade that was the improvement that they made, started to fall off the building and became a hazard, we could require them to remove it and to improve, fix it. But we don't have a stick when it comes to, people ask all the time about why isn't the town doing more with the shopping center? And really the only tool we have is the carrot right now, because, the parking lots on private property, yes, it might look poor and there might be a pothole or two, but it's his liability, not the town's at the end of the day. And so we don't have an authority to require him to necessarily, do an overlay of his parking lot. I've talked with Peter. I've asked him if that seems to be something that of all the things he could do, he might do sometime in the future, which would be nice. Because I think if he does the parking lot, he's patched it, but if he overlays it, it would look a lot better to have a consistency, fresh lined parking lot. It'd go a long way. But anyway, simple answer is we really don't have a mechanism right now. And when someone proposes a project in town, depending on the type of project, if they come to us early in the process, we can speak to them about what expectations the town has informally. I can't force them to do anything that would be out of what the bylaw allows us to, but we can say, if somebody wants to do a friendly 40B, well, I want you to build the crown jewel of your portfolio in town if that's what you're going to do, if you want to have a happy relationship, stuff like that. We can ask for, but we can't formally require them to do certain things, I guess is the best way to put it.
If I could, just because of the interest of time, we're already at 8:00. Sarah and Kevin, I assume you'll get together after this to kind of go through the input that the group gave and hopefully bring some closure where we're so close. We have been for a while. It looks like those 2 bids are definites, and then you reaching out to the owners of Country Farms to see what they might be amenable to moving forward with. Is there any other input anybody would give relative to those 2 bed sections and any improvements that Kevin could share with Country Farms at this point?
Well, Sarah and I were going to go and wander around down there, and I thought that Kendra, who has joined us, and Kim and Janet, because of all of the Main Street work, that maybe we could have a little field trip, and take a look at those beds. And I know that Kim and Janet can share their experiences, and Kendra and I can share ours. And so I think we'd all be happy to visit the beds with you, Sarah.
Awesome. I'll email you guys.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
terrific.
Janet, Kim, Kendra, and Martha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank
And
you.
Sarah, if you could put me on that email, if I can make it, I'll join you all, if that's all right. If I can't, then I'll let you.
Hey, Kendra. Were your
experts
ears
do it.
burning? Did you hear us talking about you? Okay, terrific. So any last points for Kevin relative to those designs that we just went through? I think we probably covered everything, but any other thoughts that you have too, just feel free to share with him. And then Kevin, I assume within the next couple of weeks, VHB will be wrapping up and incorporating the comments that we gave them.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I sent an email last week. Haven't had a response yet, unfortunately. But in that email was questions on schedule and on the updates and in long-term finishing of the project. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to share for your downtown update?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, I had pulled out on here the wayfinding signage as a discussion. Just maybe Kevin, because we're running late, if you could just kind of give us a status of where you are in that process and where we see it wrapping up and how you're going to tie in the VHB and the wayfinding to start to present to the town.
Yeah, so we've got a great group working on the steering committee of the wayfinding signage. We're getting really close. We're going through the specific details at this point, but some really great work by OmLoop in really putting together a nice design that we all saw last month. The intent is for that project to end this month with the design of the signs. Also VHB, hopefully end of the month, shortly thereafter, and then at some point. It seems to make a lot of sense for the final community conversation around these, which VHB is part of their obligation for this project was to provide a community conversation around design. Is to also incorporate the signs together with that, kind of unroll sort of all the things we've been working from those 2 design standpoints because they overlap in a lot of ways. So stay tuned, but I guess that's really the next 6 weeks or so, trying to wrap everything up and then push out to the community what we've done collectively. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Thank you. All right, just moving on, we'll just have a brief festival update. Kathleen, could you give the group an update on the Jazz Fest?
Okay, quickly, we have solidified our entertainers. And so we have four people performing, two bands and two single performers. And everyone, I'm really excited because everyone's very, because we didn't have the Strawberry Festival, everyone seemed that we're approaching seemed to be very excited about this activity. I communicated with the churches around the green. They're going to hold off their weddings on Saturday until after 5 o'clock. So they were very happy that we negotiated some arrangement. The library is going to have a book sale, and it's going to be out on the lawn. I'm meeting with Chief Hovey this week so we can figure out a way to ensure the safety if people walk down to the library. We were also talking about the possibility, because it might be very, very hot, that we have, if the street is closed, that the library is on, what is that, School Street? Or no, Common Street. That we put the setup for the ice cream social there, because we can access the refrigerator of the library. So the ice cream won't melt. So as I said, we're just in the early stages of talking. It was Kevin's suggestion that we narrow the focus a little bit, and rather than have the town blocked off, that we focus more on blocking off the green. Because we don't want it to look like it's very few people are attending. We are anticipating between 1,000, and if we got even close to the Strawberry Festival size, I'd be thrilled to death. So that's pretty much where we're at. And I'm just really thankful for all the people that have been helping. I'm just delighted. Also, I negotiated with Masco High School that the students in the Honor Society will have an opportunity to volunteer for setup, takedown, cleanup, serving as greeters. And they get in-service hours for that activity. So they kind of like that idea, because when you're on the Honor Society, you have to do additional in-service hours. Other than that, I've managed to talk with Topsfield House of Pizza. He's going to be selling slices, but he doesn't want to come down to the green. And I haven't had an opportunity to talk to Alex yet. So that, and of course, Whoopie Pie's going to contribute, and the bake shop will be open. And I want this week to, whatever the name of the store is next door to the bake shop, I don't know what it's called.
Fresh Look Design.
It's a cute little store. It's adorable. Yeah. I'm going to meet with her and see if she wants to do anything special or anything like that. So just making progress is, I guess, the bottom line.
Great. I think it's a Fresh Look Design is beside the bake shop, and Tom Capano, the owner, is now on the ECDC, Kathleen. So he will be
awesome
on here each month. So
good.
Great. Thank you so much. It sounds wonderful. For the Tomato Festival, just a couple of updates. Martha wrote a great article, or a press release about Tomato Day with the 5th graders over at Proctor, and then tied it in to the Tomato Festival so that they can take those tomatoes and plant them and then bring them to get judged at the Tomato Festival. So thank you, Martha. That was a great article and good advertising. Let's see. Jen told us that Smokey Bear will be at the Tomato Festival. So that was good news. Always good to have Smokey Bear. Let's see. Joyful Noises is going to be in charge of the games for the little tiny kids, and the Masco Student Council are going to be in charge of the games for the older kids, which is great.
Oh, Lynn, don't forget to give me that name.
Yeah, Ben, their
well, just email me. And
yeah, he hasn't sent it to me yet. He's going to send it to me, and then I'll send it over to you.
Okay.
And when you talk to him, make sure he knows it's because he's the same contact that said kids would help with the tasting contest. So
Yeah, he actually said the cooking club didn't get back to him yet, so he's going to let me know on Friday if they're in. And I said, well, if they can't do it,
it's the same thing. That's all. I just didn't want him to
yeah.
don't.
I did put out there that Essex Tech would be more than happy to judge if Masco can't, but just put a little competitive spirit in there so that they definitely want to do it.
Lynn, can you just say the date again? The date?
Yeah, it's September 12th from
The 12th. Okay.
12 to 3. And then the last, what was I going to tell you? One last piece. Oh my gosh. The Creative Co-op. They're going to hold a session, like a class or whatever, to do the scarecrows for the scarecrow scavenger hunt, which is great. So that's, I think, the update for the Tomato Festival. So it's moving ahead nicely. All right. So I think that's everything. Before we adjourn, is there any other thought people had or item they wanted to bring up?
I did have one. We don't have to discuss it, but I want to put this on the radar for events in general downtown, which is, I know that there's always the Department of Public Works, I guess now would be in charge of putting out that. I'm obsessed with trash barrels and whatnot. But we do have 6, I believe, recycling. They're X frames. They're portable recycling receptacles with these lids and the bags. You've probably seen them at other events. We used them at the Strawberry Festival and at Holiday on the Green in the past, and I'm having trouble locating them. So another time, but if we are having events where there's any bottled waters or canned drinks that are being sold, I think that I would like to have there be some kind of prioritization of having that be an automatic thing that we do at these.
We're actually, so we're just talking with, I didn't realize I had to go through the highway department. So that was an issue for me too, because I think that's an important issue.
So we can maybe connect a little later. I don't want to get into the weeds of the difficulty I had trying to locate them, but we can talk offline and try to figure that out.
Sure.
But I'm just hoping that the committee can sort of have that, when you're going through the checklist of things for events,
right,
that's automatic.
That was on my to-do list. The Tomato Festival Committee had steered me over to you for composting, for water, whether we do water bottles or we have jugs to fill up with cups. And so that whole area, I'll be giving you a call tomorrow if you're around, because I have to get that checked off for our Friday meeting.
Yeah.
So terrific. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Sorry this ran a little late, but a lot of good information. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
There you go, Janet. Second.
And Sarah's second. Okay, great. First and second, we'll do roll call. Rosalie? Aye or nay? Do you want to adjourn?
Yes, I. Sorry, I was muted.
Okay. Kim?
Aye.
Jilly?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And Lynn is an aye, so it is unanimous. All right. Thank you, everyone, so much. Thank you for coming. Have a good night.
And our next meeting is July 13th?
July 13th. Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I was about to say, I don't